Thank you for your service. So, where do we come from? The numbers I still can't get my mind around. The 10 years before I was elected, this city lost 244,000 people in 10 years. And so how big is that? We lost 26%. That same decade, the city of New Orleans had Katrina. The city largely flooded. In the same decade New Orleans had Katrina, New Orleans only lost 17% of their population. That's how devastating the financial and services crisis was to this city. And if you look at the 10 largest populations, cities in Michigan today, Detroit's the largest, goes down to Livonia. You know what the second largest city would be? The people who left Detroit in 10 years. They would constitute the second largest city in Michigan. That's what we're dealing with. And so that many people left. It left behind a city with the highest unemployment rate in the United States. It left behind the highest poverty rate, the highest murder rate, and left us in a position where we were unable to pay our bills. And so when I was sworn in 4 years ago, we were still losing 1,000 people a month. And when I stood here 4 years ago, I said this: give us 6 months. And people thought I was crazy. What are you going to do in 6 months? But we had to stop the exodus, because when you're losing 1,000 people a month, there's no way to run a city. Just said, I think we can get the street lights on. I think we can get the police to show up. I think we can get the grass cut in parks. Just pause. And I want to talk today to those of you who stayed. And that was a great majority, because that departure has slowed to a trickle. And I'm going to start with the future, with the ones who have been most forgotten in the last decade, and that is our children. It seemed like every time there were budget cuts, what happened? Schools were devastated, parks were closed, rec centers were closed, youth programs were cut back, and a huge portion of those 244,000 people who left were parents with school-age kids. So we're going to start today by saying to the children, we want you to stay. And for those who did stay, we make a real commitment. And the first commitment we made was that every Detroit child who graduates from high school in Detroit will have college guaranteed to be paid for. That's a Detroit promise, and we've implemented that. We became the first major city in America with a college tuition guarantee. And today, we have 8 kids enrolled today in college under the promise, 723 in community college, 459 in four-year universities. And I want to say thank you to Sandy Brewer, the Detroit Regional Chamber, Governor Rick Snyder, Rich Baird, and the whole team that raised the money to get this started. That was remarkable. With the city council, a little bit of property tax growth here paid into the just children who are 8, 10, 12 years old know that if they study hard, the Detroit promise will be there for them. And so what it means is this, that we are going to make sure that our kids not only go to school, they succeed at school. Because across the country, particularly community college, dropout rates are astronomical. When we saw this was a problem, we added coaches who follow our young people to college. And here's what they found. Last year, 63% of the kids who started the first year of community college made it to the second year because these coaches doubled the national average. Our kids are succeeding. And in the four-year schools, and I know I see President Roy Williams here, where they're having great success at Wayne State, 89% are doing this. We have smart kids who just need the opportunity. And so for our high school seniors, you're graduating this May. Sign up now. Go to DetroitPromise.org. If you're accepted to a community college, you have 2 years tuition guaranteed. If you got a 3.0 grade point average and a 21 on your ACT, 4-year university tuition guaranteed. And as one of our supporters likes to say, anybody thinking about selling their house in Detroit, after you put the Century 21 sign on your front lawn, you ought to put another sign that said, with this house comes a free college education, because that's what it means to be in the city of Detroit. I talked to Dr. Vitti and I said, what can I do to be helpful? He said, the biggest thing we need right now is our career technical education program. It's just been devastated over the years. And so we put together a partnership with Jerry Anderson and DTE and the Ralph Wilson Foundation. Got $10 million in donations to rebuild the Randolph Center. All new equipment. And now our young people are learning electrical and plumbing and carpentry. And next year, we're going to add robotics and welding. We're doing it right here in the city of Detroit. 300 kids enrolled this fall, 400 more next year. And in the fall of 18, we're going to raise another $9 million for the Bright Hub Center for all of these programs. So those who don't want to go to college or maybe want to go later have another career. And thank you to Quicken for the $1 million that got us going. But the biggest thing I want to talk to you about right now is the role of the mayor in the support for public education. Because in this city, we have today 198 schools, 112 DPS-CD and 86 charter. And I have said many times, I believe in choice. I think we need to have quality DPS schools and we need to have quality charter schools. And I am going to support both of those. And so Tanya Allen and 150 volunteers just came out with some recommendations, and they asked the mayor to get involved. So last week, I'm not imposing myself on anybody, I invited all our charter operators and Dr. Iris Taylor, the president of the school board, and Dr. Vitti, and we had a meeting. And I said, let's talk about whether you want me involved. And I'm only going to act if you want me to. And here's the first thing. Parents need to have information to choose their schools. Well, there used to be something at Excellent Schools Detroit that fell by the wayside. The state was supposed to do something which hasn't been done. And so I said, what if we do this? What if we got representation from DPS and the charters, from the parent community and academics, and we put out report cards that parents could rely on every year? We did it together, so parents had a basis for comparing. Would you all support that? And they said, if the state gets behind that, we'd like to have you play that role. It was very interesting. It's the most fascinating meeting. It's almost historic. They're getting along. And I'll show you the reason why the meeting went so well. Because 32,000 Detroit children today attend school outside of the city. 51,000 today go to DPS-CD. 35,000 attend charters. And 32,500 children got up this morning and went to school in a school in the suburbs. And that says that what we're doing is not working. And so whether the parents feel we don't have good enough quality schools, whether it's transportation, I'm not sure. And as we point out, there are some good transportation systems. We look at that. Isn't that a great school bus system? Covers the whole city of Detroit. That school bus system is the River Rouge Public Schools school bus system. I'm going to say that again. That little green in the bottom is the 3 square miles of River Rouge. And they run 200 miles of bus routes through the city of Detroit every day. Now, leave aside the education policy of the state that encourage that. My question is, why is it working? And so what I've said to the DPS and the charters is, it's working because we're not working together. We got lots of schools who are nearby who could share resources. And so I said, let's take an area in northwest Detroit, say Southfield to Livernois and Fenkell to 8 Mile. And we've got about a dozen charter and DPS schools. Let's have a combined bus route that serves both of them. And maybe it looks like this. This isn't a final route, but it gives you an idea of how the bus route could work. They do this in Denver. We'll fund it a third with philanthropy, a third through the city, a third through the schools. And here's how it'll work. If you live in this part of northwest Detroit, you can go to any one of these 8 schools or 10 schools. You walk or ride to the nearest school, you get on the bus, and it can take you from the Detroit Achievement Academy on the west side over to Bagley. If they've got a math program that you like, you can choose any school in this area. We'll run the buses in 2 directions so that the ride won't take too long, and we're going to make a commitment to 5 years. We're going to make choice available so they're not being bused an hour away to River Rouge. And they said, we like that idea, but it's not enough. One of the problems we have is we got parents who get home from work at 5 o'clock, but their kids get out of school at 3. We need a place for these children to go. What if everybody on this loop got together? Your loop's got the Northwest Activity Center. What if you ran licensed daycare after school? The child could get on the bus, ride to the Northwest Activity Center, stay there till 5 or 5:30 in a safe environment, ride their loop back. And now every school has that program. And then another one said, well, wait a minute, that's not enough. We can't run 8 different robotics programs, but what if we came together and had after-school programs like robotics or software programming, art or music? And somebody said, how about if we just help the kids with their homework? What if we all came together and provided those kinds of after-school programs on these routes? And so this is the concept we're talking about. We're shooting to get it done this fall. I don't know if it'll be 6 schools or 12 schools, but I can tell you from the enthusiasm that if we could get DPS and the charter working together and collaborating, we could provide good choices right here in the city of Detroit. And my role is going to be to support them, not to choose sides between them. And if this works, we're going to replicate these routes in one area after another in the city, so you never again have a kid riding an hour on a bus to go to another location. One of the other programs, of course, is Grow Detroit's Young Talent. And what do the kids do during the summer? And I want to thank all of our business community and the like. But you can, 8,000 kids enrolled last summer. If your company wants to hire us, go to gdyt.org. If you're a child who wants to sign up, we've got summer jobs with career tracks for you. So you're going to be covered not just during the school year, but during the summer as well. Something that I know everybody on this stage shares with me is to make sure that those who stayed in Detroit, and we're talking about those who stayed, can stay in their homes. And we remember this incident well that happened in Griswold in 2013, when not only did the last administration support it, but the council voted a tax abatement to move out what had been subsidized housing. And this is a woman I met by the name of Stella Buchanan, who was in that property, got pushed out. Ms. Buchanan lived most of her life in Detroit, graduated from Southeastern, worked at DPS, worked at Chrysler, retired, got her a little apartment in Detroit. 48 years, evicted from Griswold, moved to the Industrial Senior Building. Now, when the HUD credits expire, usually they're for 15 or 30 years, the owner of the building is entitled to move the subsidized renters out and put new people in. That happened to her at Griswold. She went to the industrial building on Washington. They told her credits ran out. She could be moving again. And as she said to me, I came downtown when there was nothing but me and the pigeons. She said, there was nothing here. Now we got parks at Campus Martius and at, what's the other, Beacon Place, where I can go and listen to music. I can go over to Avalon and get a salad. I can go to Tim Hortons, get a coffee. I got people on the street. And now it feels like the city I love is pushing me out. We said, that can't happen. And so Arthur Jemison and our team went and sat down with the folks at Industrial Senior Building, great partners in the Roxbury Group, and said, we got a new policy. We're not going to move people out so others could move in. And they agreed, and we got a commitment that Ms. Buchanan and all 127 of her fellow citizens will be able to stay in that apartment at low rent through the year 2047. So is Stella Buchanan here? Ms. Buchanan, thank you. You told me you planned to stay the whole 30 years. So we got that building done, and then we said, but this is happening all over the city. We could have a couple of thousand of these. So we went to Village Center and extended theirs, and then went to Ryan Court and extended theirs till 2046, and then to Restoration Towers in Northwest Detroit till 2031, and this one till 2031. Rivercrest out on the east side near me at 2046. Building owner by building owner, most were great in wanting to do this, but we're saying to folks, for the next 30 years, you can be sure that you can stay here. And one of the most interesting is, this one, Milner, was never a subsidized property, bought by Broder and Saxey. These are guys I gave a little bit of difficulty to about that apartment on Griswold. And they came to me and said, we just bought this apartment. And I said, that's not HUD subsidized. There's no rules here. They said, we want to set a different standard. And even though we're using our own money to renovate it, it's not HUD subsidized, I want you to know, every person in this apartment making less than $40,000 a year when we're done renovation is going to have that apartment at a subsidized rate for the rest of their lives. So we're starting to build a different culture. 1,772 people like Stella Buchanan now know their homes are protected for anywhere from 15 to 30 years because you stayed, and we're going to make sure that you know that you're valued. But keeping what we have isn't enough. And so we need to build more units. And so we made a commitment, and now with the support in particular of Councilmember Sheffield, you want to build a new unit with our support, 20% has to be affordable. And so this beautiful building in Midtown, 40% of the units are affordable. And this on the riverfront, another 20%. This is going up right now in the New Center area at 20%. The Traymore Apartments, 28 units in Midtown, 100% affordable. And so I went to the opening of the Traymore, and I got a chance to meet a fellow who came and talked to me by the name of Antonio McClure. And he came up and he says, "I want you to meet my daughter." He's got 7-year-old Amira and 6-year-old Alyssa. And he says, "I grew up in Detroit, but I care about my daughters. I share custody with their mom. I pick them up from school every day. They stay with me 2 days a week. I need to have a place that they can be proud of." He works as a valet at the Motor City Casino. And so he says, "I was in the suburbs." He says, "But I wanted to be in the city. I wanted to be by where I worked." He says, "And when I found these affordable houses, these affordable apartments at the Traymore, that I can have this beautiful place in Midtown Detroit and bring my daughters to be close to work and be proud." He says, "I came back home." And so we may have lost 244,000, but we got 3 back. Antonio, are you and Amira and Alyssa here? Welcome back. This is the city that we're working to build. 600 new affordable units already. And now we're going on to raise $250 million to save 10,000 more units that are coming up in the coming years, like Stella Buchanan's. They built 2,000 more. And we've already identified $50 million in city funds. We're raising $50 million in philanthropic funds, and we're going for low-interest loans so that people like major foundations can make a low-interest loan. The builder can borrow at a low interest and pass those savings along in subsidized rates. We believe we can raise this. This is what a city needs to do if you're going to build a city that's meant for everybody.
A number of social justice organizations responded to the mayor's address tonight. They say they're concerned about high water bills and water shutoffs, and also wealthy developers using public money for private developments and residents not having much of a say in those developments. Those are some of the things that many grassroots organizations are concerned about, and the criticism that they're laying at the mayor's feet in light of tonight's address.
Assault. So without further ado, I'd like to bring you on some speakers who are going to have an opportunity to speak from the people's voice so that we can hear about the things that were not referenced in the mayor's State of the City address today.
One of the things I want to address is the Q line. A lot of people think of the Q line as public transportation, and it's not. It's a public-private enterprise.
That they want us to pay for.
We already did pay for it.
That's right.
It cost approximately $140 million, of which $42 million came out of Michigan and Detroit's public coffers. And realize of that $140 million, half of that is the federal government match. So out of $70 million, the city and the state paid $42. Now that's really nice, isn't it? And what do we get for it?
Nothing. All right.
Thank you. And DDOT has a great number of riders, more than any other metropolitan area in Michigan. It has more than the surrounding suburban areas put together on a daily basis. They have a minimum of 100,000 plus riders daily. Right? In a city that doesn't even have a million people, that's more than 10% that ride the bus every day.
Absolutely.
Right? And we talk about things being fixed. I'm going to say this. Yeah, they are getting fixed. It's a slow process. But since government decided to, in the past, dismantle public transportation in Detroit, and now it's coming back. It's slow. It's a slow process.
We heard the mayor talk a bit about affordable housing, and if you know that the median income in the city is somewhere around $26,000, affordable housing at a minimum of $40,000 is not that affordable. And that means that a lot of residents are unable to afford what the city is deeming affordable housing.
Middle of the winter, right? It just snowed last night, right? I just scraped the ice off of my stairs, right? And you telling me that this woman who is trying to get a home in the city, has purchased a home in the city that's been vacant for 6 years, can't get service. So when we talk about homes, we talk about all the utilities that goes into that, right? We talk about water. I didn't hear anything about water. We all mentioned that. We didn't hear nothing about water. That's because it's not ours no more. That's because if you want to go see the Riverwalk or just look at the water at night, you're going to be told to get out of the property. Get out of the way. What you doing at night that I can't come see the water? I can't even look at it. You know, I did a little bit of research on renovating homes. I'm in the midst of a class right now. And we think about all the homes that got lead in it, all the homes that got asbestos. And he's talking about knocking these houses down like it's nothing, like this is not going into our air, like this is not affecting our children, like this is not right next to us. Toxic. Exactly. Who has enough money to abate and renovate these homes that was built in the 20s? Who has enough money to do that? Not us. Not us. So we living in lead. They come knock down houses and we breathe in lead. And I heard the narrative of the people who stayed, not the narrative of what the situation was that caused people to leave.
That's right.
Not the narrative of the thing that's still working to kick people out.
That's right.
You said something about living wages?
I didn't hear anything about a living wage.
Didn't hear nothing about a living wage. How are we supposed to keep up these houses? How are we supposed to make enough to stay in these houses?
He said Myers $9 an hour.
That ain't no money.
And you gotta pay union fees.
That ain't no money. That ain't no money. That ain't no money. That's why we're making $26,000 a year and not $44,000 a year.
My name is Michelle George. I'm a public health nurse. The thing is, we know a few years ago there were water shutoffs. And a massive water shutoff of thousands of people. The key thing is now we do have a hepatitis A epidemic.
Right.
That is going on. And what you need to know is that with that hepatitis A epidemic, it can come from water shutoff. Sometimes that's where it originates from. We have an issue now. She spoke on demolition and lead, but the incinerator and toxic waste. And I'm concerned about a lot of things too. I didn't know how bad it was until I just read it in the paper. Lila was telling me some things about it. But when you have a city that's predominantly people of color or people of all races who are poor, you're going to have those issues. One thing about water shutoffs, when people water shut off, it's dealing with shame. And that breaks my heart. And then when people have shame, they hold that in with the stress. And then you have children, because the first thing you want to do with hygiene is cleanliness, brush your teeth. And when people don't have that, they keep it to themselves, they don't wash their hands, then that's where sickness can come.
My name is Miguel Pope, I'm a part of People's Platform, and I want to talk to you about a really, really important issue, the Community Benefits Ordinance. And I want you to tell me, how would you respond to this? I come to your house, I find out you have a really nice backyard, and I say I'm going to have a party there. And I ask you, can you give me some money to have the party in your backyard? But guess what? You're not invited. But I want you to help me set up everything for the party, but you're not invited. That's not right, is it? Can you say that? That ain't right.
That ain't right.
That's what we have with the current benefit, Proposal B. Detroit is one of the largest cities, actually it's the only city to have a formal ordinance of this type. That's huge. So one of the things we have to do is we have to make sure that those things that are written in the ordinance are implemented. Can you say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu?
If
Not at the table, you're on the menu.
If you're not at the table,
You're on the menu.
and that means that there are people making decisions about how you live and what you do, and you have no say-so about it. We have got to get at the table now. So 3 things we want to look at to amend it. The ordinance needs to be more inclusive, it needs to be legally enforced, and it needs to make elected officials more accountable.
Okay, before you leave, I need you to know that we're going to be coming to your community to hold your council person accountable and the mayor accountable. So we want to come into each council district with a follow-up where you come and you report what's really happening in the other city. Because we know that there's 2 cities in Detroit. So get ready, get ready, get ready, and watch for the lies and start tweeting the lies right here, right now, so the mayor gets feedback.
It's very clear that there are many issues that the mayor did not address in the state of the city. Let's not make this the end of the conversation. You can still continue to follow the hashtag People's SOTC on social media and keep the conversation going. Keep engaging with the mayor around the issues that you did not find covered in the state of the city today. Thank you again for attending the People's Response to the State of the City.